No Child Left Behind. Has that helped or hurt, in your opinion?
In my opinion, it's one of the most disastrous things we've ever had in education. I ran into a colleague the other day in the store, and she retired shortly before I took office. I've been out of the classroom going on 2 years now, and she's doing some subbing now, and she was just amazed. She said, everything is so completely rote. You know, we're not teaching critical thinking skills anymore. We're just like pouring facts in children's head, and that's where No Child Left Behind has taken us, unfortunately. The idea that all children are going to be forming exactly the same level is it's preposterous. It's unattainable. We wish it were. I taught special education. I have students that just. We always want to take them farther than where they came to us, but we're not all going to perform the same way. And we want to use this cookie cutter education. We want everybody to get the same thing at the same time, but we want different results. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me as an educator. We have to meet kids where they are.
Yeah. I noticed, I don't know if you ever watched The Tonight Show. I'm not plugging The Tonight Show here, but you know, sometimes they have people on there and they ask just common questions. I think there's a lot of adults that have been left behind. I mean, some of the answers that you get from some of those adults is just amazing to me.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how you could get through.
The cameras could be making them nervous, though.
No, they just do not know. They do not know the answers, and some of you know, I mean, just American history questions, or you know, current events. Who's the Vice President of the United States? And they show 2 pictures. You can't pick him out. I don't understand it.
It was funny. I met Vice President Biden a few years ago, and I was so excited. I came in, I had my pictures and showing my students. We talked about the Vice President and the President a lot, and I'm showing the kids a picture. I'm so excited. I'm like, ooh, is that your husband? He's old. No, it's the Vice President. So as hard as we try, sometimes they don't take it all in. But
yeah, that's true. But you know, current events. I mean, you should keep up. You know, it's like our council meetings. We very seldom have more than 2 or 3 people there.
Right.
If we have that.
Right.
There should be 50 people there.
There should be.
See what's going on.
There should be.
It's their money we're spending. It's their money we're doing things with. You know, if you want to do something special, or you want to have an idea that, you know, we're not doing, you need to bring it to us. But
I think it
doesn't happen.
I think it goes back to why, at the beginning when you asked me why I ran, it's like with my students, they don't feel like they can be part of the process anymore. And I think we have, as elected officials, we've got to work very hard to let them know they are part of the process. We want them to be part of the process, and we've got to bring them back in. Because I think they're just angry and they're discouraged right now. So.
Well, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the
You're
problem. As somebody said, I don't know.
You're absolutely right.
I didn't make that up. Whoever said that.
That's absolutely correct.
But that's true. What you talk a lot about education. That's your passion, I'm sure. What are some of the things you're going to try to get the state of Missouri to do? Well,
one of the easier things that I think should be able to happen is, as you probably know, I fought really hard for the early literacy program since I've come into the legislature. I serve in education appropriations and full budget, and for $100,000 a year, we can serve second graders. It's a 10 to 12 week program. At the end of that program, 77% of our students are back on grade level in reading and writing. And we can serve most all of our Missouri students in need at that dollar amount. And so to me, that's a simple, easy solution versus when we wait till they're adults and we do adult literacy, we're talking the cost is over about $400 per student or per adult. So we have to address that. We need to make sure those children are reading and writing at a very early age because they miss out. And I always try to tell my colleagues, think about it when you run into a meeting late and you're trying to gather yourself, you're trying to figure out what you missed before, and you're trying to get up to speed, and you're trying to jump into the conversation. That's what that's like for our students that are behind, and that's their entire educational career. And they give up eventually, and we can't afford to let them give up, and we can't afford to lose any children. So.
You almost got to get them hooked on the iPads or the iPhones because there ain't a 5-year-old alive that doesn't know how to work one of them.
Well, I won't encourage that. I had a hard enough time getting those cell phones out of the classroom. So, but
those iPads, I mean, it's amazing what kids And they look, you know, there are educational
Oh,
programs on there, a
absolutely.
lot of them. So you know,
Absolutely, absolutely.
you know, it's one way to go to make learning fun.
Yes.
I think that's what you got to do is you got to make it
Yeah.
fun. You don't want to. You sit there and look at a book or whatever all day. It's not no fun.
The books can be fun.
Well, they got pictures in them.
Yes. You know, we're also looking to address the foundation formula, which we're nowhere near fully funding. I don't see that happening. Again, if we don't increase revenue, that's going to happen. There is a real push to for early childhood to make sure that every child is getting or is school ready when they enter kindergarten. I would love to see mandatory kindergarten at the very least. St. Louis City, they're doing some wonderful things. Every student in St. Louis City that wants full-day kindergarten, full-day early childhood has access to that, and that's just critical, and they're getting some great results from that. When I went to kindergarten, I mean, we didn't have early childhood. Kindergarten was kind of preschool, and we have kids that are coming to kindergarten and they're expected to start reading, and some of these children haven't learned how to sit in a seat still yet or how to interact with their peers. So we need to make sure that kids are school ready when they hit kindergarten. So, or they're going to be very far behind. So
Yeah, it's getting so that, you know,
yes,
you have to be when you're 5 years old or 4 years old.
they're
you
reading.
start,
They're just starting to do
getting
math
stuff.
skills. Yes.
Yeah.
Not just learning their letters. So.
And I notice my grandkids are doing basic algebra already.
Yes.
And I didn't touch algebra until I was in college.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
they really
Right.
pushed a lot of it down.
Right.
So
And sadly, that's why a lot of kids are being left behind. It's not necessarily the curriculum, it's just they're not all coming to school ready to learn, and that's unfortunate.
how do you catch someone up? Let's assume someone comes in, they transfer into your district and come from another school district that, you know, not necessarily one of the best districts, and they're in, say, 6th grade, but they're actually working at a 3rd grade level. How do they bring that gap up? Is there a way of doing it, or?
It's extremely difficult, and it's getting more and more difficult as we're expected to just keep moving kids along the curriculum. But we have reading recovery types of programs, or remedial reading, and they can be quite successful. A lot of our kids, before they're allowed to move on in certain areas, they have to take those. At the high school level, the kids would often be angry because we made them they had to take their remedial reading, and they don't like that at high school very much. But so that's in lieu of an elective course. At the elementary level, you can, again, you have to pull them out of something. The days are very busy now. There's not a lot of just downtime in our educational system, so that means they're maybe missing science and social studies to catch up on their reading skills. So again, that's why it's so critical that we look at programs like early literacy, that we're getting those children caught up very, very early. But you touched on a concern that we have, particularly in the metropolitan areas, is students moving around from one district to the next. It doesn't even necessarily mean that one district is better than the other, but we're not all teaching the same things at exactly the same time. So it's a concern for kids when they're coming in and they're being exposed to different curriculum. So.
Okay, let's touch on something very sad that happened the other day. What are your thoughts on what happened in Newtown, Connecticut? That's terrible, terrible, terrible.
It's tragic.
Catastrophe.
It's absolutely tragic. As a mother and a teacher, it's been difficult the past week. Spent a lot of time crying. And I was talking to my son, and he's like, "Mom, tears aren't going to solve this problem," and they're not. I think we have to address this now. Is the time to address it? We can't. It's not one. There's not going to be one. It's not one problem, and it's not going to be one solution. I think we need to begin really serious, open dialogue. Gun control is part of the answer. I find it hard to believe people need, military caliber weapons. But we also need to talk about making sure that mental and social service programs are available, and health is there for them. But we need to stop this name calling, and we need to listen how we're talking to each other. The proliferation of violence in this country is very, very disturbing. Prior to this, a lot of the dialogue was teachers are horrible. These teachers, they're just there to ruin our children, and we just need all these new groups. We need education reform. This week they want to arm us. So we just really need to change the dialogue, and we need to listen to one another. You alluded to that earlier in the conversation with the Municipal League. Mm-hmm. I found when I entered the legislature, I thought I'd go up there and I'd be so opposed to the other party, but I've actually made friends. When you sit and listen to somebody and you try to understand where they're coming from, why they hold the position, it helps you form compromises, because it's easy to villainize and just say, oh, they're terrible people. They're not most of the time. They just have a different viewpoint of how to get someplace. And so when you can understand why someone holds the belief that they have, then you can start to have real dialogue and find real solutions.
Yeah, it's, there's, the answer to that's going to be very difficult to come up with, and, you know, probably something with assault weapon. I mean, you know, you really don't need to go hunting with an assault weapon.
You don't.
You don't. It doesn't make sense.
You don't.
But I'm not so sure I agree with arming teachers either.
No.
Because what would happen if, you know, something happens, they get a call, they run to a school, they see a teacher running down the hall with a gun in her hand. The police officer's not going to know who that is. Well, they're not going to know.
I posted on my Facebook page, do you want your child's teacher moving your child to safety, or do you want her reaching for her weapon? The story that was probably most striking for me was the young, and I can hardly talk about it, crying, was a young teacher that moved all of her children into closets. And she told that gunman that they're at PE or their gym class, and he killed her. But what people don't understand about that story is those children trusted her enough that they were quiet in those closets. Imagine a classroom of children in a closet. They don't know what's going on. They've heard gunfire. They had to have been frightened out of their mind. But they trusted her enough to be in those closets, stay in those closets, and remain quiet enough that that gunman believed that teacher's story and moved on rather than looking for those kids in that classroom.
Yeah, it had to be very frightening, and it's, you know, something we hope does not happen anywhere again, because it's
But we know
tragic.
it will. We know it will. I think there's since Columbine alone, there's been like 181 school shootings. We have to do something about it. We have to do it now. We have to start those discussions now.
Okay. Well, as we wrap up here, how can somebody, if they want to contact you, how can they contact you?
They can contact my office. If they go to the Missouri General Assembly website, they can plug in my name, Genise Monticello, Monticello, and they will take me to my link with my office number. My in-district number is 314-722-3121. I encourage people to contact me there as well, and by email. All that information's on the General Assembly website, though.
Yeah, I imagine you get tons of email, don't you?
Sometimes, yes, on some issues, yes, yes. And I appreciate that, because it allows me to understand what issues are important to my constituents and and let them know where I am, and explain my votes to them.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Genise.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have to do this again.
Yes, I'd like that. Happy holidays.
Same to you. Thank you for watching our show this evening. If you need to contact me or have any questions, please call me at area code 314-355-0400, or you can contact me on the Blackjack City's website at www.cityofblackjack.com. There's a link out there to the Office of the Mayor. Thank you. Good evening.
I remember the moment.
I'll never forget that moment.
That moment?
It was a moment that changed my life. I'd been training with my team for months, and now we had been called up for the first time. The real deal. Wildfires were getting dangerously close to homes. At that moment, I got my first taste of just how important the Guard is to my community.
See how the Guard can be an important part of your life at NationalGuard.com.
Be out there. Be out there. Be out there. Be out there.
Time was, kids did what came naturally. Spending free time running barefoot through the grass, wading knee-deep in streams, climbing to the tallest branch. But today, American kids are more likely found texting, watching TV, or gazing at a computer screen. They spend more than 7 hours in front of electronic media. Something essential has been lost: childhood's connection to the natural world. That's why National Wildlife Federation created the Be Out There movement. Kids move indoors causes a host of problems, from obesity to ADHD. But outdoor play can go a long way to